I'm going to tell you the story of two girls. One of them, 14 years old, is funny, talented, creative, quirky, super smart. She has a high IQ and she tests really well, but she's always suffered from anxiety. By the end of her 8th grade year, the anxiety began to take over her life and she was having daily, debilitating panic attacks. She missed so much class that her grades began to fall and her self-esteem suffered. Another student, 15 years old, was sunny, optimistic, cheerful, always ready to lend a helping hand. She was an avid runner, she was a singer and a performer. She loved to help people in need. By the time she got to high school, all of those characteristics that had served her so well became red flags for bullies and mean girls. She was bullied, and her self-esteem suffered. She also began having panic attacks, and her grades fell. She began to punish herself, first with anorexia, then with cutting, and finally with thoughts of suicide. Why do I tell you these stories? Because they are two indicators of an irretrievably broken system, our traditional school model. In our traditional school model, it is largely teacher-based instruction, a teacher standing in front of a classroom lecturing, much like I'm doing now. There is little freedom for self-expression or creativity. In 2011, in the state of Washington, 41% of teachers were ELL certified, or certified to teach non-native speakers English. However, 13% of them had received any specialized training or teacher development. Mental health disorders are a growing problem among our younger population. But mental health disorders carry such a strong stigma still that students are reluctant to come forward, and they're often at a point of crisis before they get the attention of school teachers, administrators, or counselors. These problems exist in spite of the fact that there are some fairly shocking statistics. About 8% of teens suffer from an anxiety disorder. Major depressive disorder is the leading cause of disability for Americans ages 15 to 44. And suicide is the third leading cause of death for children and adults ages 15 to 24. In 2011, in the state of Washington, the average student-teacher ratio was 21 to 1. Now that doesn't sound that bad, right? 21 students and 1 teacher. And that is okay until you get to the middle and high school level. You multiply that by 5 or 6 classes full of students in a day, and you have teachers who are seeing 100 to 120 students in a single day. And they don't have the time or the capacity to get to know each student and their educational needs, let alone how to accommodate those needs. Additionally, in the state of Washington in 2011, the counselor-to-student ratio was 510 to 1. 510. With student loads like that, there's no way a counselor could even memorize kids' names, let alone understand educational needs and serve them. In this model, general funding, curriculum design and instruction, computer lab use and teacher salaries, all of those are tied to standardized test scores. We still teach to the test, in spite of growing evidence that it isn't working. Not only is it not working, but it's detrimental to our students. Our students are becoming even physically ill from anxiety trying to take all of these tests. They're also spending less and less time in recess and PE, adding to the growing epidemic of obesity. So how do we engage our students? How do we help them hang on to the joy that is inherent in young learners acquiring knowledge? How do we spot, treat, and accommodate children outside of the mainstream? How do we mitigate mental health issues competently and compassionately? The answer is with a new system, one that engages the student as the center of the educational experience. We have a long list of common sense solutions: smaller schools, lower adult-to-student ratios, individualized learning plans for each student, relevant, meaningful projects, successful collaboration, appropriate scaffolding, which is bringing up student deficits to a proficient level, real-life experiences, everything from the computer programs that we use to civics lessons to relevant field trips, and meaningful data collection and analysis that drives real-time curriculum and instruction. Perhaps most importantly, though, is teacher development. Plenty of time for collaboration and mentoring, Lots of room for observation, both with the teacher as the observer and the teacher as the object of observation. Adequate resources, appropriate training in innovative practices, and the freedom to put those practices into use. I'm working with an extraordinary group of talented individuals to open a new middle school in our community. We chose to open a middle school because at middle school you start to see a bigger achievement gap between English language learners and low-income students and their more affluent Caucasian classmates. Johns Hopkins University presented the ABCs of high school dropout indicators. Students who have an 85 to 90% attendance rate or less, students who have a behavior mark of unsatisfactory in one or more class, and students whose coursework include failing in one core subject like math or English. At the 6th grade level, students with one indicator, one of these small ABC indicators, has only a 15 to 25% chance of graduating high school in 4 years or even 5. We asked parents, students, educators, community members, what would you like to see in a school that you don't have now? The results were overwhelming. We got a long list of really great solutions, and all of these ideas were already incorporated into our school model. Community involvement, additional parent involvement, bicultural and bilingual instruction, meaningful scaffolding and support, and lots of relevant, meaningful projects. We will be utilizing project-based learning. Project-based learning has a proven track record with over 1,000 high-performing schools nationwide. Project-based learning closes the achievement gap by offering equity to all of its students, by leveling the playing field. Project-based learning students have a deeper subject understanding and perform better on standardized tests than their traditional school counterparts. And most importantly, project-based learning teaches 21st century competencies like college and career readiness, critical thinking, and problem solving. Now, I'm not suggesting that you all run out this minute and start a school. I'm starting this school because of those 2 girls that I mentioned at the beginning of my story. They are fortunate. They're doing better. They have well-educated, articulate, fierce advocates. They have exceptional health care coverage, which manages to cover the cost of their mental health and their physical needs. They have a support system in place and parents who will advocate for an independent study to allow them the time to catch up on things they need to catch up and accelerate those that they want to. But what happens to the thousands of students like those girls who don't have advocates? What happens if we ignore their needs? What happens to us as a community and as a society? We all suffer. What can you do if you are one person? Well, your voice makes a difference. All you have to do is make noise. Your small voice added to others means all you have to do is speak up, question existing policies, elect educators, demand accountability from our school system as it exists. If we combine all of our voices, we can create a call for meaningful change that will be impossible to ignore. Thank you.